Hi everyone, this is Johnny Waite of Direct Agents. I'm the SEO lead over here. With me today I have Brian Herskowitz from BrightEdge, and we're going to be getting into a little bit more of an expansive intro in a second. But while people are signing in, I thought I would take this time to go through some of the administrative items of the webinar. We're going to have a couple of polls throughout the webinar, which when we get to them, you'll see them on your screen and they're interactive. Fill them out. We'll have about 45 seconds allotted for everybody to read through and give their answer. Immediately following the results, we'll be reviewing them just to kind of make it more of an interactive thing. If you do love the content on the webinar today, I wanted to mention that Brian and myself's info will be at the very end after the Q&A, so feel free to reach out to us via email following this. And during the webinar, if you have any questions, in your upper left-hand side of your screen, you'll have a little chat window. You can type in your questions there, and we'll hold those till the end, and we have some time allotted for a Q&A. So we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can, and we'll leave a little extra time after the allotted time for the webinar to try to complete those. But yeah, feel free to ask us any questions that you have, and we'll do our very best to get to all of them. As I said before, I'm Johnny Waite. I've been in SEO about 8 years, which for some of you might seem impossible, but yeah, I've been doing SEO for about 8 years, working both agency side, in-house, working on pretty much every vertical you can think of. I work for Direct Agents here in New York City. We're an omni-channel agency. We have offices in both New York City and LA, so both coasts, and we handle a wide array of the digital marketing spectrum. Our services include SEO, obviously, paid search, programmatic, paid social, creative, and advanced analytics. And over the last few years, we've had a lot of cool opportunities to implement and test some of the items that we're going to cover in today's webinar. So we're definitely excited to go through today's material. I know us at Direct Agents and the guys over at BrightEdge have been working in conjunction for a while, and we're really excited to go through this with you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian to just give you some info on himself and BrightEdge. So Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. So a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, worked with BrightEdge for just shy of 1 year so far. And BrightEdge as a whole is the industry-leading SEO platform. So we'll do some kind of high-level dives into it and how it ties into this presentation throughout. But we work with great folks like Johnny over at Direct Agents, but we also work directly with some large clients as well, and clients of all sizes, really. We work with over half of the Fortune 100 companies. So definitely the industry leader from an SEO standpoint and helping give a lot of visibility and strategy around how you attack SEO as a company.
Great. Thanks, Brian. So with that, I think we've had some time for everybody to kind of log in and get settled. We're going to jump into the content in the webinar today. So this topic, how to leverage user micro-moments to maximize your brand visibility, has been something that if you've gone to conferences or you've been in the industry a while, or you have an agency partnership with Google or any of those guys, you've heard this term micro-moments. And the purpose of today is really to take these high-level terms that you hear that are the next big thing, or what you should be focusing on in 2017 and beyond, and really give kind of a tangible outlook on it. So Mike saying we need to focus on micro-moments is all well and good, but what can we actually do that's actionable? So with that, we're going to go into just kind of a high-level overview of what a micro-moment is, what that can be segmented out into, and then we'll get into some very tangible material of what do we do to actually capture these micro-moments. With that, the second here. We have the definition. What is a micromoment? Some of you may have seen this before, have heard it a million times, but just to give you a clear-cut definition. It's a moment when a consumer acts on a need. For example, they want to learn something, they want to do something, they want to discover something, they want to watch or buy something, they want to take an action. We call those intent-rich moments where decisions are being made and preferences shaped. So that's great, but what does that mean? Really from an SEO perspective, and I know Brian can attest to this over at BrightEdge, what we deal with is taking these high-level kind of market lingo and sentences and try to create something that a client or a brand can use to attract more customers, to expand their visibility, and ultimately grow their business. So with that, I'm going to have Brian kind of lead into what's involved in a micromoment.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. So one of the things that a lot of folks in the SEO industry can relate to is you guys are ranking really well for a particular query on Google. You go to bed, you wake up the next day, and all of a sudden you guys aren't even on page one. And I think a lot of people I speak to on a daily basis will say, yeah, I can totally relate to that. And then you have to try and figure out, well, what just changed? Why did we slide down the rankings so dramatically overnight? Well, the answer is probably that Google's algorithm changed. It changed over 500 times last year alone, so it's more than once a day. So it leads to the question is, well, how do I stay ahead of this? And I think really, if you try and stay ahead of each change, it's nearly impossible because you're just never going to be able to do that. So why not take a more macro level approach and kind of understand what Google is trying to do with these algorithm changes? And that's where these micro moments really come into play and kind of map your SEO strategy and efforts to them. So essentially what Google is trying to do is with every query on Google, it's trying to put them in a certain bucket. Is it an I want to know moment? Is this an I want to go moment, an I want to do moment, or an I want to buy moment? And based on that, Google's going to change the shape and the result of the search engine results page. So more and more, as we go through this presentation, you're going to see that as Google classifies a query they're going to classify it into one of these buckets. And based on that, it's going to then change the dynamic of the search engine results page. So just a couple of quick examples here. With an I want to know moment, you might see an AMP page or a knowledge graph, which Johnny's going to talk about the AMP specifically and the knowledge graph actually here in a couple minutes. And I want to go, you might see a local 3-pack. So, bars near me, restaurants near me, all of a sudden you see a local 3-pack. And I want to do moment could be how to change a tire, and all of a sudden you see a quick answer or a video. And then finally, an I want to buy micro moment, Google could potentially serve up that 4-pack of ads, which we'll talk about each of these throughout the presentation as well.
Thanks, Brian. So to take a deeper dive into some of these elements, first thing we want to talk about is within the I want to know moment, how to maximize mobile, and more specifically AMP, which is an accelerated mobile page. Just to give you an idea of what that is, if you've ever Googled something on your mobile phone and seen a little lightning bolt in the bottom left corner of the result, that's called a accelerated mobile page. And what that is just a light version of a mobile page on your site that Google caches and serves up to user in an extremely fast load time. And what that means is, load times of 1 second, less than 1 second, 3 seconds tops, and it creates this user experience where somebody's searching for, either a recipe or a piece of content that's served up in a news platform, and Google, promotes that with, in a top story, in a rich card, and serves up these AMP pages that users can then click through and see that content in a very real-time fashion. What we've seen so far has been nothing short of miraculous. As you see on the screen, we've seen bounce rates go down by 50%. We've seen brand loyalty go up, and we've seen user experience on the positive side. So really what these pages do is just provide the content that you want to serve up to your users in a very fast, very easy way. And it benefits client side as well. AMP pages use 10 times less data versus your non-AMP pages. The pages are very, very easy to build. It's very, very light HTML. And it's open source. So, as the project gets updated, your development teams are able to make updates to your pages as they go out. And a little bit more into, the accelerated mobile pages. We can see here that, these AMP pages have a wide array of uses. So this is a snapshot from the BrightEdge platform. And what we can do here is identify, areas for AMPs within top stories. And that's really where you're going to see a lot of these pages is top stories. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be a news platform or anything like that. Top stories can contain any kind of article that is trending right now. So if you have content that you're putting out that isn't necessarily national news, but is very real time and lines up with user intent, that's something that can be pushed into the top story section, and especially if you have AMP pages enabled, something that you can capitalize on as well. And really what we want to look at here is that you can boost your traffic and conversions because of these AMP pages and utilize something like the BrightEdge platform to identify content areas where you can use these. And then additionally, as we have down at the bottom left of this slide, you can know which topics are AMP preferred by Google, and that's really where the money is not just kind of creating AMP and pages and saying, yeah, this would be great, but identifying what pages will make the most use of this and capitalizing on that. With that, I wanted to take a quick poll, and I know that some of you have, either heard from me or heard from your own SEOs or internally or from outside sources, AMPs, or you've Googled something on your mobile phone and you say, what the heck is this little lightning bolt? But I wanted to take a quick poll. There's just three little, options to choose from. Yes, we're using AMPs today. Second option is I know how to implement an AMP, or I know what an AMP is but not sure how to implement. Or you're familiar with the concept but unsure how to implement. So if you guys want to take about 45 seconds here and just fill it out, and we'll review the results together. Again, this is interactive, so you can just click the option right there and submit. We'll go through that. And just as a kind of high level on this stuff, if this content is useful, or if you have follow-up questions or want to take kind of a deeper dive into what some of these topics mean, or what's involved, again, you can fill in the question section here, and we can try to answer those at the end, or we'll have you can send me or Brian an email afterward, and we'd be happy to go through that with you. But really, we want to just kind of give a high-level overview on the stuff, how to utilize it, and what its uses are. Okay, with that, let's look into the results. Wow. So there we go. About 85% of you are familiar with the concept but unsure how to implement. And I do want to talk about that for a second. We have a couple more slides to follow up that get deeper into what an AMP page is, but that's kind of the sentiment we've been getting with our own clients. Me and Brian talk pretty regularly, and we've kind of connected on that point that people have heard this, they've seen it, they don't really know if it's for them or actually how to implement that. So with that, we're going to get into a couple just little snapshots of how to implement this stuff and what are the usages. So right here, why should you care? What's the best use of an AMP? And we showed before that, the BrightEdge platform can help you identify, what pages and what kind of content Google prefers as an AMP. But really what we want to look at is how would you actually make these? And we give a small little snapshot just to show you what AMP HTML markup looks like. But as you can see, even if you're not familiar with coding, it's very, very light. And really, an AMP can be used for mostly anything. Lately, what we've been seeing is websites that have an issue with mobile page speed. They'll actually set their AMP pages as the preferred page to rank, which is something you can do. But really, the focus here is you can increase your mobile traffic and you can build brand loyalty. And what we mean by that is because AMPs can get preferential treatment, they can populate in carousels on a mobile device, they can populate in the organic listings alongside your actual mobile pages. You're just increasing the likelihood of a piece of content that you put out appearing in multiple places in the search. And that helps own shelf space for your brand, which increases brand trust. And then also the functionality of the AMP pages themselves, which we mentioned a few times. The fast load time really just says to users, hey, this is a site that has useful information. We're not bogged down with technical difficulties, that sort of thing. And if you have questions about the build, what I would suggest is connecting with your development team to A, see if they know how to develop it, and B, if it's something that they can do. One thing I did want to mention is that a lot of the CMS platforms that your websites are running on, the big ones, WordPress, Drupal, Magento, all have plugins and modules to enable AMPs, either through your blog posts or your articles or your product pages. Most of those CMS systems have plugins available to kind of automate this process. I would also say if you're running a CDN for anything like Facebook Instant, you would also be able to implement AMPs into your CDN so that whenever you create a piece of content, push it live, it is pushed out as an AMP page as well. And then just kind of as a visual, but to show you, what are examples? These are a couple examples that we've made here at Direct Agents. Blog posts are an easy one. If you have a blog, you're utilizing content marketing. I know everybody's hooting and hollering about content marketing now, and I think rightfully so. I think you should definitely consider pushing out all of your blog content as an AMP as well. It's only going to increase the likelihood that those posts are visible and ranking in search engine results. And then product pages. And product pages have a lot of cool functionalities. You can put your P2Ps, your product display pages, your featured products, your product category pages, they can all be set as AMPs. And if you enable all those, on a mobile search, somebody could land on a category page or on a specific product and have a limited, navigation within that kind of AMP platform. And again, because of the page load time, the quick response, the simple design, users tend to interact really well with those. So, I hear you on the front where a lot of people are hearing about accelerated mobile pages. They're familiar with the concept, don't really know how to implement. So I would recommend, if you know what CMS platform you're on one of those that I mentioned, asking your dev team if you can enable a plugin and have it troubleshoot that with them, or if you're on, say, a older CMS or a custom CMS, talking to your development team about what it would take to build those out. So now we're going to move on to our knowledge graph section, and I'm going to just briefly touch on this because I think most of you are pretty familiar with the concept, but a lot of brands have knowledge graphs enabled, but don't capitalize on everything that's available. And really what this has to do with is, if you're a big enough brand where, you have a Wikipedia page that is, accepted by Wikipedia, that is absolutely knowledge or info that you should pull into your knowledge graph. If you have that set up properly as a brand within Google+, it should automatically pull in. Also connecting your social channels, providing your customer service line, hours of operation if it's applicable to you. These are all things that you can include in your knowledge graph. And just from a high level, what I would say is, take a look at your Google Plus page that's verified for your brand. Make sure that that's updated. Make sure that your logo is crisp and clear, that the descriptive info that you have on there is correct, your phone number, your location info. We'll get into that in a bit where we kind of talk about the local 3-pack, but one of the biggest mistakes that brands make with local info, even if you aren't a brick and mortar, is displaying different pieces of information about your location on different platforms. So I would say, for this, just make sure that everything's, sealed tight, because that is very good branded traffic that you don't want to lose out on. With that, we're going to go into the next section, and I will turn it back over to Brian.
Perfect. Yeah, so the next micro moment is I want to go. So this is really kind of focusing on the local 3-pack and kind of the near me queries on Google. So what's interesting here is this is growing quite a bit, and as we're going to go through each micro moment and kind of the potential search engine results pages and what those dynamics might be, that's the common theme is these are showing up more and more places. So Google's trying to answer your query as quickly as possible through their algorithms. So with this, it used to just be focused on hospitality, but now it's really expanding more so it's including shopping, dining, finance, all could be things that kind of pop up with local 3-packs. So I think a lot of times businesses think, well, this doesn't apply to me, but it actually does, and if it doesn't yet, it might in the very near future. So it's definitely something you want to think about. It also shows up both in desktop and mobile today. So definitely a really relevant piece that we want to kind of focus on here. So one thing here that kind of a little bit about BrightEdge functionalities, we'll be able to see exactly where these local 3-packs show up. So kind of the workflow is you could track specific keywords within the platform, figure out where these local 3-packs show up, where you guys are currently showing up for local 3-packs, and then you could actually track your location pages through the platform as well and kind of track those results and potentially try and grow that local 3-pack kind of footprint on Google. So I'll turn it back to Johnny to talk a little bit more about the specifics here.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, and this is something that we've been playing around here at Direct Agents with for a while, and the reason being is it keeps updating. As Brian mentioned in the beginning, Google's releasing algorithm updates. They are playing around with betas, and really their focus is to provide the best experience to users. For your brand, if you have locations, even if you're not brick and mortar, really beefing up your Google My Business listing is something you should do. Maps data, local 3-pack rankings, they're all directly linked to your Google My Business account. And I remember back in the day, kind of before it became Google My Business, going into Google Local and playing around with what information was available, and then a month later it would update, and I'd have to go back. And this is just something that, even if you're sealed tight in this area, that you want to keep an eye on and check up on, pretty much monthly. And just kind of some high-level points here is, non-brand keyword association with your business is a really easy way to kind of build brand visibility. If any of you have ever done any kind of app store optimization, you know that just putting your brand name kind of does a disservice to the non-brand visibility you could have. That'd be something we would definitely recommend. Click to call, obviously, local ad extensions within your paid search. And it just increases your local presence. So even if you're not looking to have, people come to your headquarters, if they're looking for a brand or a service that, is within your wheelhouse and they just happen to be local, it'll just give you an extra, boost of visibility there. And it's definitely something that we've gone back and forth with clients that say, hey, you know, we're national or we're international. Why would we want to be locally visible? And I get that sentiment, but really it comes down to you want your brand to be as visible as possible for the most relevant queries. And this is really, you know, one of those areas that if you're not utilizing or you haven't looked at it in a while, I would definitely, you know, recommend looking at just because it's an easy win. You know, and when we go through, you know, our SEO audits and everything, we always talk about low-hanging fruit, and this is definitely near the top of the list. And then outside of that, oh, sorry, we're jump to a poll real quick before we get into some more about kind of beefing up local listings. I just want to kind of get everybody's you know, consensus on how comfortable they are with Google My Business, the functionality of it. Again, you have an interactive screen here, just on a level of 1 to 5, 5 being the most confident. You know, how confident are you that your Google My Business listing is optimized? You know, and keep in mind that it changes, and if you were confident in it 3 months ago and you haven't looked at it since, that may be something that you want to keep in mind. I know from our end, that's something that we look at right away, and we have to kind of re-up on every few months for our clients. So, you know, again, keep in mind that, you know, there are some areas where you can optimize further. If you just have your brand name submitted, you only have a few images displayed in your Google Google Plus profile that's connected with Google My Business. You have a Google Plus profile, but it's not connected to Google My Business. All those types of things would kind of qualify into, you know, your confidence in the optimization of that. So give everybody a couple more seconds to fill that out. Okay. All right. So majority of you said not confident. We have 8% saying very confident, 16% saying confident, around 30% somewhat confident, and then what is it? Business, Google My Business listing. So kind of on the not so confident, somewhat confident middle ground there, and that makes sense. Google releases updates and does not tell anybody. There's always confusion as to we're not a brick and mortar business. Why would we even want this? And really, what it comes down to is, you know, Google owns the market share, and these are the platforms we have to play in. And Google My Business is something that local businesses capitalize off of a lot, but something that some of the bigger brands definitely miss out on. And again, what we would say is, if you know your Google My Business login, just going back in there and making sure your information is correct. You know, if it's not connected to a Google Plus profile, making sure that's corrected, connecting your AdWords with Google My Business so that location and click to calls enabled on your paid search. Those are all pretty easy things to do that you can do right away. And then, you know, getting into what is the non-brand keyword that defines your brand. Maybe something that you want to tag onto your brand name in your listing. And Google's pretty good about updating that stuff rather quickly. I think on the high end, they take about 3 days to verify your info and display that information in search. So, yeah, glad that you guys, you know, that some of you are very confident in that area, and I definitely get the sentiment as to, you know, Google can be kind of confusing in this regard as to, you know, they update this and don't really tell anybody. So, you know, one last thing kind of touching on to, you know, local search is local page optimization. And, you know, I'm not sure how the group here on the phone, you know, how closely you guys follow search engine updates, but as Brian said before, they're pretty constant. And in September of 2016, Google released a update that was dubbed Possum, and it was a pretty massive update to their local algorithm. Mobile search got hit the biggest for businesses, you know, local businesses. And what we saw in map results is, you know, Google was, you know, trying to shift some of the visibility from the large brands in the big cities to, you know, maybe some businesses that are nearby but not we're in Manhattan, but we saw some shifts from search results in Manhattan to maybe some smaller surrounding areas where they think might be more useful for users. So just some kind of high-level pointers here. Making sure on your local pages that you're optimizing, and I would say the mantra here is consistency. So, city and state in the title tag, your header tags, your URL, the content on your page, your description. Again, making sure your business name, phone, and address are exactly how they are listed in your Google My Business account or any other local aggregate you have on the web. Just making sure that stuff is consistent will go a long way. And really, this is not too SEO heavy, but it's more or less tell people where you are, tell people what your business is about, and tell them where you are, and utilize the content you have on your website to do so. So with that, we're going to get into I Want to Do, and I will turn that back over to Brian.
Cool. So the next micro moment is I Want to Do, and specifically what I really want to focus on is the quick answer piece to this. So in case you guys aren't aware, quick answers are essentially Google trying to answer whatever your query may be within the search engine results page. So an example might be how to change a tire, and then Google will give you the instructions on the search engine results page with a link from where they got that content from. So it's interesting, is a couple interesting points on it is one, when they first came out with quick answers I think it was about 2 years ago, it represented about 2% of searches on Google. So in other words, 2% of all queries on Google would have a quick answer. Now it's representative of anywhere from 20 to 40% of all searches and growing. So this is a really relevant example of kind of a micro moment in how it's growing and how adopting and changing and kind of competing for this landscape could be really meaningful. Another piece that I think is really interesting on quick answers is when they first came out, a common conception was that would cannibalize your organic result. So Google's answering the question, and now that person has no need to click on that link. But what we actually found through doing some research is quite the opposite. When you actually show up for a quick answer result, you reap the benefits of a huge traffic increase. This is actually a third-party research paper that BrightEdge kind of came out with and released. And some of the statistics we've seen in here are huge traffic increases when you show up for a quick answer result. So one thing you could do within BrightEdge, and just a good strategic move overall, is one, understand where you guys are currently showing up for quick answers on Google. But two, it might be really interesting to understand where your competitors are showing up for quick answers, and then writing content to compete for that landscape, knowing that if you win that landscape and that organic kind of real estate, that you're going to reap the benefits of a huge traffic and revenue increase potentially from ranking for a quick answer. So I'm going to pass it back to Johnny here to do a little bit of a deeper dive. I think there's a poll question first.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So we're going to go into our next poll. And again, we want to get an assessment of everybody's kind of comfort level with quick answers. So 4 options here. Great, we're already doing quick answers. We're ranking for a lot. Or, we're writing for quick answers. We haven't seen a huge uptick or haven't seen an uptick at all. Third is, we're planning to, but we're unsure how to write for these. Or, the last one, no idea where to start or never heard of quick answers. So, again, take a minute, submit your answer. Quick answers is something that I think most people are still trying to understand. After the poll, we're going to get into the different types of quick answers. And spoiler alert, there is one that Google prefers over the other. Okay, let's see what our results are. Okay, this is what I thought. We have seen this a lot, and over the last year and a half, we have increased our SEO engagement with our clients to get into content marketing, and this has become a huge topic of discussion. Yeah, quick answers is something that I think people just started randomly seeing and unsure what they were, or I talked to people who thought they were there the whole time. But as Brian said, have become more and more of the search space. 2% was a very, very small share. Now, at times up to 40%. And really what it comes down to is, your brand, what you represent, and then what your brand can answer. And that's really why quick answers exist, is does your brand answer a question, or does it solve a problem that people would want to see right away? And it's that micro moment of I want an answer right away, or I want a video tutorial on how to do something. If your brand happens to fit that query or answer that question, that's where you can really gain some visibility with MicroMoments. So I'm gonna get into a couple things about MicroMoments. Just how do you approach these? What to focus on? And if you have a content team, or you utilize your SEO team to kind of lead your content strategy, what your brand should be focusing on, and really where the wins are. So we look at this again is a screenshot from BrightEdge. We can actually identify via your keyword groups, what the potential is for your quick answers. So, within that platform, we can see universal results. We can see what, your brand is ranking for. When we begin an SEO engagement, one of the first things we do is do keyword research and then bucket those keywords into categories so that we can target the site in content silos. And then, via the BrightEdge platform, what we can do is take those content silos and the keywords contained therein and see what the potential is to rank for quick answers. And something I wanted to point out here, if you look at this top bullet point, 82% of quick answers populate in paragraph format. So 82% of the time when a search populates for a quick answer, it's just going to show up as a 40 to 60 word paragraph. A little over 10% show up for lists, and that is something I think in the beginning a lot of the SEOs targeted, and then quickly realized that is not where a majority of the market share is. And then 7.3% for tables, and that in tables is a bit more difficult to rank for. That tends to a lot of .govs, a lot of EDUs kind of own that space. So really where the wins are within the paragraph format. And what we like to do within a content marketing program is when we decide on the amount of content we're going to put out, what we're going to target, we reserve a nice little section of that for blog posts specifically catered for quick answers. And the biggest thing there is making sure that your content is useful to answer whatever question you're asking, or whatever users are asking. Don't force it. If you can answer the question very easily, go for it. If you can't, pick something else. And the quick answers rely on things that we call power phrases. And just very simply put, it's the how-tos, what is, best ways, top 10. And when you're picking, you're targeting, you look at your keywords, you look at how many people search it per month, you may look at your PPC data to see if that keyword is a converter. And then you want to do some research to see, is there a long tail version of that keyword that we're targeting that populates a quick answer? And that's when you get into these power phrases. And I give an example of here, what's the best way to shampoo for curly hair? You're answering a very simple question. And if you look at the, result there, it's really talking about the best way to wash your curly hair. And a supplier answered that question with their own, product, which is generally how it goes. And what we found through, studies of our own, through other case studies, is that, within targeting these quick answers, the best way to do it is A, target what keyword you're going to be focusing on that blog post. Make sure that the content is useful to your reader. And then, identify the power phrase that ranks, see who your competitor is, see if you're within your competitor set. If you are just starting up, you maybe don't want to go up against apple.com or something like that. And then, write the question into your content and then write a 40 to 50 word paragraph that answers it. And look at what keywords your competitors are using that populate for the quick answer. There's no problem in kind of conquesting that way. And then the last piece of this, and this is one of the first things that we kind of do when we get into management of a site's blog or building out something, is how are you structuring everything? It's great to have a blog, it's great to have an outlet for fresh content, but is it organized? Do you segment out your content so that you have silos even within your blog? And then will your quick answer content cater to those silos? And that's really how you build visibility and breadth over time, is focusing on a subject and really continuing to generate content that your brand may have expertise in or is real time, and you can fluctuate between the two. But I would say one of the biggest pieces outside of the actual writing and identifying the power phrases and knowing where to place each paragraph is just how is this categorized? How does it fit into your brand image and your brand voice? And then how is it going to help people? And have you put out more than one piece of content that fits into a content silo that you've created that can complement that? And just keep rolling that way. And really look at what works, what doesn't, and play off your strengths. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Brian. He's going to touch on the last piece here, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up about what you should focus on as an overall strategy, and then we'll get into Q&A. So Brian?
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. This last micromoment is the I want to buy micromoment. So when Google identifies queries as you're about to actually make a purchase, they're serving up ads. And they've done that in the past, but it used to be kind of on the right side of the search engine results page, which didn't really impact the organic listings. However, in February of 2006, the ads were moved to the top of the organic results page and pushing all the organic listings down. So this is an example on this slide. You can see in yellow, those are 4 ads that are served up. And the first organic listing is Office Depot in this example, which is pointed out there by the organic listings kind of mark there on the slide. So as you can imagine, that's going to dramatically impact the click-through and conversion rate, the click-through rates and conversion rates here, because it's getting pushed all the way down because of that particular micromoment. These ads are taking precedent. So it's definitely a dynamic to pay close attention to, and we'll talk about how BrightEdge ties in, as well as a couple of other pieces here in the next 2 or 3 slides. So I'll turn it back to Johnny, and then I'll show you another last piece at the end.
Excellent. So really what we're going to look at is how do we identify these micromoments? Because I think for a lot of people, they're aware that they exist. They're aware that, either accidentally their brand is ranking for them, or they've been trying, and some pieces of content populate for these micro-moment queries, and others don't, and you're not sure why. At Direct Agents, we tend to really leverage the BrightEdge platform for that very reason. It does a very good job at easily identifying where you are populating for micromoments, where the potential is, and how your competitive set is doing in comparison to you with these. And we look at those and we call them universal results. And if any of you on the line have received a report from me, in the keyword section you see blended rank, and what blended rank is that in a classic rank you have paid search, and then you have 10 organic listings, and then you have page 2. But if you've really looked at the evolution of the Google search results over the last, I would say, 5 years, that's really transformed, especially with the rise of mobile search. those listings, it's very rare that you come across a search page on Google or Bing that doesn't populate some sort of image or some sort of video or a carousel or a Twitter feed or top stories. And really what we're utilizing the BrightEdge platform to do is identify those areas, because oftentimes they have higher click-through rates. Users click on the thing that's, in a very simple way of putting it, the most fun, it's the most interactive, it's the most visual. And in some regards, with the kind of quick answers things, with the AMP pages, a lot of those we call rank 0 because they populate above everything else. So we use our keyword tool in BrightEdge to identify what are your keywords that you rank for with universal results. And if you look at the screenshot, you have a light gray and a dark green. The dark green is your universal presence, and the light gray is your potential. And that is really where we want to kind of shift that, where your potential is equal or less than your actual presence. And we can identify all those different moments within the BrightEdge platform to really capitalize on the keyword groups that are performing well, and if they are, can we mimic that to our other keyword groups? Or like Brian said before, to see how our competitive set is doing, and to mimic some of their strategy or take their strategy and do it better, and then grow from there. So with that, we're going to get into one more thing, just at, kind of wrapping up why you should care about micromoments, what they mean to your brand visibility, and that's just that more people are going to visit your site. There's on average a 69% increase in click-through rate in organic above the fold results versus those below. And that has changed a lot over the years. What we say above the fold is the page before you scroll down. So that varies greatly from desktop to mobile, obviously. But this increase of universal results, of quick answers, of AMP carousels, of top news stories, of the knowledge graph, local results shifting, paid ad extensions, paid ads populating in 4-packs, all of this affects what the top fold looks like. And really our goal is not to say, hey, we got you to page 1 or, we got you into rank 1, but to say, hey, because you're in rank 1, you have an increase of click-through rate and you have expanded traffic, it's more relevant, qualified traffic, and whatever your KPI is, whether that be, contact, revenue, transaction, things like that. That's really what we're focused on in SEO. And I think that has become uncovered over the last few years. I remember when I started in SEO, that was more of a misnomer. They thought we were keyword stuffers and we just were concerned with rankings. But really what we're concerned with is, are we getting more qualified users to your site? Are they finding your content useful, and are they, either engaging with your brand or making a purchase as a result of the content that you put out there? And here it's pretty drastic, and it's meant to be that above the fold is really where you want to be, and the way to focus on that is user micromoments and capitalizing on these universal results. So, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian. He's going to just kind of cap everything off with how you look at everything and really what you need to do from a high level, and then we'll get into our Q&A section.
Perfect. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, I actually clicked the slide by accident, but it worked out perfectly. So, yeah, this is really kind of tying together exactly what Johnny was talking about is, well, what does the search engine results page landscape actually look like? And this is a rough example of a report you could get from BrightEdge, where you could see if the keywords that you're tracking within the platform, if there are opportunities to be above the fold or not. So you'll kind of have an idea of, is there a 4-pack of ads pushing down the organic listings below the fold? If so, I may need to change my strategy, and I may want to partner with my PPC team to kind of include them in that particular query or grouping of queries, because I know that they're all getting pushed below the fold. I may have a strategy around, I know that we're above the fold for these queries, and I know that we're also ranking number 1 or number 2, or we're doing a really good job. So I may want to actually set some alerts around that to make sure that I'm maintaining our position there. So really the theme and kind of to wrap up, and then we can get into the questions, is to really just understand as these the search engine results pages are changing constantly with Google's algorithm changes, it's vitally important to understand those changes and understand how your organic footprint has been impacted by these changes. And that's really where a company like Direct Agents and Johnny and his team could help, and where a platform like BrightEdge could really help from a visibility and a strategy standpoint. And that's what we do. Johnny and I work on a lot together. So with that, I guess we'll jump into questions. Johnny, maybe it makes sense for me I'll read out the questions and you can answer them. Would that work?
Yeah, that works. And before we get into that, you know, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm pulling up this last slide so everybody can see. If you didn't have the time, or you think of a question later, we want to make sure that you guys have the availability to reach out to myself or Brian at any time. You know, so even if we don't get to your question now, we're going to do our very best to get to all the questions. Or if you have a question, you know, that you didn't ask during the webinar, feel free to reach out to us then. So with that, we'll get into the Q&A. And Brian, I think that's a good idea. If you want to read them off to me, and I'll do my best to answer them.
All right, perfect. So the first question is, why does Google's algorithm change so often? That's a great question.
That is something that we've been trying to uncover for a while. Google's mantra has always been to mimic the user. And we've seen that through the years where we call it the Wild West of SEOs, and it kind of gave us a bad name, where you had guys who made these businesses off of creating you know, websites that offered no value to users, and they would rank high. If any of you are like me, and please don't report me, I downloaded music back in the day or streamed movies, you'll notice that over the last few years, if you search for services like that, they're almost nowhere to be found. And that's due to ranking algorithm updates. What Google's trying to do is provide the best results in real time for people. So the reason that we're seeing updates where, you know, top news stories are populating, why they're slamming down on backlink schemes, things like that. Or even just simple updates where they say, hey, you know, our latest big algorithm update was something called Fred, and it was very simple. Their answer was, we've had this in our webmaster guidelines for years. They're really just trying to, you know, provide the best experience for users. We've seen promotions for secure sites. They don't want people's information to get stolen. We've seen them promote mobile because they've seen, you know, the mobile usage has gone up, and they, you know, Google's understanding was, you know, if their usage is going up, we should roll with that. And really, it's kind of been a shift in you know, for all of you in marketing have seen less what you're trying to say as a brand and more saying what people want to hear. And Google's been trying to cater to that need for a while. From a technical standpoint, from a content standpoint, they are continuously updating it, and you know, they're not perfect, so they test things, they see what works, they see what doesn't. You know, with all these updates, they've had another 100 set of things that they've rolled out that they've taken back because it didn't work or people didn't want it. But really, the simple answer is they're trying to mimic a user experience and do that through machine learning.
Perfect. Next question here for you, Johnny. I heard that AMP traffic cannot be tracked via Google Analytics. Is this true?
It is not true. It's true in the sense of you won't see that traffic populate in your existing view. What we do is we set a different tracking code specifically for AMP pages. Google is still trying to figure out a good way to show that kind of traffic without it being a referral. Right now, if you're caching your accelerated mobile pages through Google, which you can do, when you go into that AMP page, you actually won't see your domain name. You'll see an extension of that AMP, and they're still trying to work out, you know, how to track that traffic so that the AMP traffic and metrics are displayed in your website view. There is a workaround for that, and that is creating a tracking code specifically for your AMP pages. The way that the URL is displayed for those pages is simply the URL that you have on your site /AMP or /AMP. So it's not much different, but the answer to that is to create a separate view and a separate tracking code for your AMP pages.
Perfect. Next question. What is the most common SEO practice committed that companies do that really just hurts their rankings?
That is a good one. I would say I don't know if I want to get into what that would hurt their rankings. There's a couple things, and I'm going to list them off very briefly. Sometimes we have studies that we've done, a lot of different businesses have done on what is the trend for a really well-ranking page. The answer to that's very simple. It's content. On average, page one results have over 2,000 words of content on the page. And then a majority of pages that rank on page one are over a year old. And the pages that do rank on page one before 1 year, which is rare, are 6 months old. So I would say content length, targeting, making sure it's useful, and then, if you make an evergreen page, put it up there, and unless you have to make some minor optimization tweaks, leave it alone. Unless it's severely underperforming, then go back to the drawing board. But generally speaking, brands are afraid to put too much content on their page. They aren't paying, in our discussion of above the fold, that also applies to your own website. People will bounce if they come to your site and the first thing they see is a large image with no explanation of what that page is. Or, you're on a product page and they have to scroll down to the bottom to buy. Those are all things to pay attention to, and really, I would say don't be afraid to have a content-heavy page. Work with your design team to make sure that it fits in there nicely, but especially on the mobile experience, people are more willing to scroll. So if there's a lot of content on there, people will scroll more than they would on a desktop. And that's what we've seen. We try to base we try not to make too many assumptions and try to base all of these things off of data that we've seen. And what we know is that, the more content, the better. 2,000, obviously there are a myriad of other factors, backlinks, internal links, user engagement, all that kind of stuff. But if you were just taking a new evergreen page and saying, how would I make this rank well, make sure you know what your targeting is, make sure that it's not buried in your URL structure, and make sure that, I would say at a minimum there's 1,500 words on that page.
Okay, great. And looks like we have maybe time for one or two more questions. This one just came in. What's the best approach when you definitely don't want to send people to your offices? The example is you don't have a brick and mortar type of business.
Sure. Actually, within the Google My Business, you can set your business as a service as opposed to a brick and mortar. There's actually an option for that. So, I would work with your web team. If you don't have your login or you need a new one, it's very easy to claim that. Just go in there and see how it's set up. If it's set up as a local brick and mortar, then yeah, people may, look up your location. But if not, you can set it up as a headquarters, and then it'll populate like the example I gave. That's a knowledge graph, but map results can show up similarly.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. There were a couple of questions about, I think, coming from BrightEdge clients that were asking about where can I get a report or can I look at AMP, and definitely reach out to your client services manager or feel free to email myself. I think somebody asked about a specific slide as well, so feel free to email Johnny, email myself. We're more than happy to send over any resources that you guys need and answer any follow-up questions that you have.
Excellent. Yeah, and just to kind of wrap things up in that vein, Brian and myself working in conjunction. So, you know, if there are questions that involve the BrightEdge platform, feel free to reach out, you know, to your client services. If you're not a current BrightEdge customer, you can, you know, reach out to BrightEdge directly, or you can reach out to me as the, you know, what are the benefits of that. We're aware that there are other platforms out there. We go through that a lot. So we're happy to answer those questions. And like Brian said, if there's any questions on the content, or any follow-ups, or if you're in need of SEO work, or you want to utilize BrightEdge, just our phone numbers, our emails are there. Just feel free to reach out. Okay.